Ever wonder why you're supposed to throw salt over your shoulder if you spill some? Or why garlic is said to be protective against vampires? Or just how many superstitions are linked to the egg? For the month of March, I'll be looking at the stories behind common superstitions and symbols of luck. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind Lucky Food. But first, a quick message. If you're listening to this, you know how awesome you are for listening to podcasts, right? You get to be that friend who starts sentences with, "Hey, I heard on a podcast." 1 out of 5 people listen to podcasts every month. That means while you're the cool one, 4 of your friends, well, aren't as cool as you. But you have the power to help them. Be a good friend and suggest a podcast. For the month of March, hundreds of podcasts from NPR, StuffYouShouldKnow.com, and indie podcasts alike are putting out a challenge to listeners to introduce their friends to podcasts. And as much as I'd love it if you recommended the story behind, it might not be up everyone's alley. But there are plenty of shows to choose from, like the Epic Film Guys or the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews for movie and TV lovers. Everyone Has a Podcast or the Ultra Podcast for those who like comedy and music. Odd Dad Out and Off in the Weeds for those who like funny takes on news and pop culture. Home Gadget Geeks for those who like gadgets and technology. The Endless Knot and Myth Take for those who like history or the humanities. Whatever you decide to suggest to your friends, tweet about it using the hashtag Trypod. That's TRYPOD, as in try a podcast. I'll be using the hashtag all month to talk about some of my favorites as well. The first time I heard about salt being linked with superstition and the supernatural was watching the Disney movie Hocus Pocus as a kid. In the movie, the character of Allison finds out that a ring of salt can protect against the witches and their spells. But this wasn't just a myth made up by Disney. Salt has a long history associated with the supernatural, but more importantly, salt has been an important part of civilization as far back as ancient Rome, when soldiers were actually paid in salt. There are differing views on if this was the origin of the idiom worth his salt, or if the etymology itself is the reason, salt having a similar root to salary. It's actually considered bad luck to lend salt to someone, much like the idea of lending money to a friend ending poorly. Salt has also historically been considered valuable for its ability to keep food fresh before we had refrigeration, and it was a luxury for centuries. Britain's monopoly of salt in India led Gandhi to make his famous Salt March in 1930. In some Eastern religions, salt is seen as a purifier, and in pagan religions and Wicca, it's believed salt can be used to cleanse an area and ward against evil. And through this series, you may have picked up on a lot of context of these superstitions stemming from Christianity, and salt is no different. As early as the book of Genesis, Lot and his wife were warned by angels that God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and they were to leave and never look back. After they left, Lot's wife made the mistake of turning over her shoulder and was instantly turned to a pillar of salt for disobeying God. Another Christian reference to salt isn't necessarily in the Bible, but in Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting, it's hard to tell the apostles apart, but if you want to locate Judas, he's the one who knocked over the salt with his elbow in the painting, leading people to associate spilling salt with evil. And remember old cartoons where someone would have an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other? Christians believed the devil resided over one's left shoulder, and throwing salt over that shoulder after it was spilled would blind the devil temporarily. Many associate garlic with bad breath, but in this house, my husband and I can't seem to get enough of it. Aside from being a favorite to add to almost any dish, garlic has been associated with good luck and protection from evil since ancient Egypt and was given as payment to pyramid workers. Pliny the Elder wrote about garlic not only as a natural health aid, but associated with Roman gods and goddesses as well. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus is given an herb known as a moly from the god Hermes, and was able to resist Circe's magic, avoiding being turned into a hog. Hermes was said to have gotten the herb from the ground, and the root was black and the flower was like milk. Modern scholars believe this is actually a reference to garlic. By the way, this is the same moly referred to in the expression, holy moly. Garlic itself has antiseptic properties, and is still considered good for one's health, especially the common cold due to the high antioxidant levels. It's been used in salves, inhaled, or worn as an amulet for luck throughout the years. In parts of Europe, it's believed that chewing a bulb of garlic while running a race will keep competitors from passing you. And Hungarian jockeys will fasten garlic to their horses with the belief that competing horses will be offended by the odor and fall back. Greek midwives were said to hang garlic while women gave birth to ward off evil. Sailors, miners, and bullfighters have all been known to carry garlic as a way to protect them from tragedy, and it's no wonder Bram Stoker picked garlic as a protection device against vampires in Dracula. If you're listening to this on the week it comes out, you may have tried balancing an egg on its end. As it's said that on the vernal equinox, the earth is in perfect alignment that an egg or broomstick can be balanced on their ends perfectly. This old wives' tale has been proven false. There is no special time of year that makes an egg able to be balanced on its end. Aside from this superstition, eggs have always been associated with the spring, fertility, and rebirth. Because of this, there are plenty of superstitions surrounding eggs, including ones we touched on briefly in the story behind lucky animals a few weeks ago. It said eggs with 2 yolks are considered lucky or foretell birth. But cracking open an egg to reveal a bloody yolk is said to be a bad omen predicting death. Aside from the obvious symbolism of eggs being a holder of life, by this point in the series, you probably won't be surprised to learn lore regarding eggs comes from, you guessed it, the Bible. One story is that Mary, the Virgin Mother of Jesus, was so distraught learning her son was to be crucified, she gave eggs to Roman soldiers to hopefully persuade them to keep him from suffering. As her tears fell on the eggs, they changed color to either red or multicolor, and this is one of the theories about why we dye eggs at Easter. Another story is when Mary Magdalene went to visit the tomb of Jesus after his crucifixion, she saw he was resurrected, and when she went to the Emperor Tiberius Caesar of Rome with the news, he mocked her, pointing to an egg in her basket she was carrying, and said, "If this is true, may your egg turn red," which it did. In many Eastern and Orthodox churches, the eggs are dyed red as a symbol of Jesus' blood. Aside from Christianity, eggs have made their way into other ancient religions, including the Egyptians, who believed the sun god hatched from a giant egg, and the sun itself was laid daily by a celestial goose. And in Hinduism, the egg is seen as a symbol of the universe, with the shell being the heavens, the white the air, and the yolk the earth. And we may never have a clear-cut answer about which came first, the chicken or the egg, but this question has been around as far back as Aristotle, who said,
"If there has been a first man, he must have been born without father or mother, which is repugnant to nature. For there could not have been a first egg to give a beginning to birds, or there should have been a first bird, which gave a beginning to eggs. For a bird comes from an egg."
The role of Aristotle was played by Ryan from Kuldrin's Krypt. Information for this episode was sourced from HowStuffWorks.com, Cracked.com, Discover Magazine, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.